Hello adventurers, and welcome back fellow paint slingers, and in this video we're going to be painting a whole squad, a full Blood Bowl team of Lizardmen. So this is a full set of models that a friend had asked me to paint for him so that he could use these in a really cool tournament that he's going to be doing in February of this year. Welcome back to the channel in the brand new year as well. Sorry for being absent for a little while. I needed a little bit of a break and a little bit of recovery time after being so busy with work and of course painting all year round. So I've had a little bit of a break and now I'm back, and we're going to get straight back into painting, and we're going to have some fun painting loads and loads of cool new things this year as well. I have loads and loads of big plans. But as you can see, these are all of our Lizardmen. We have 6 of the big guys, 6 of the skinks, and we also have 2 of the chameleon skinks as well. So we're going to start, as always, by breaking these down into parts. So we're going to start with the base colors. Now what I've done here is I've made this video into parts, so if you don't want to watch the whole thing, because I know half hour is a long old time, I broke it down into parts just so that you can watch the bits that you want, or the bits that are relevant to you. So if you want to go to any of the areas or any of the chapters, you're more than welcome to do so and skip ahead and things like that. That's absolutely fine. So all we're going to do is we're just going to start by using a sort of a rough brush, sort of my basing brush. This is a brush that I'm not too worried about getting the paint sort of into the ferrule and things like that. This is just a brush that I'd use to cover the miniature as a whole. And that's all we're going to do, is we're going to start by covering these in this nice Vallejo blue. And as you can see, this is going to have a really nice sort of kind of a brightish colour, a really nice sort of blue tone already on the model. And pretty much we're just going to cover all of the skin area in this colour. We're going to build up different areas and different colours and things like that as we go, but you don't have to be too precious or too precise with this stage. And once we've got all of the skin painted, as you can see on the board just below, I have loads and loads of skin all painted blue. Then we're going to move on and use a Citadel colour. So we're going to use this Avalanche Sunset, this really nice yellow colour. It's one of my favourite yellows. It takes to miniatures really well. It has a really good consistency and a good thickness. And that's all we're going to do, is just on these sort of frills just coming out of the back of the heads of the lizards, we're just going to use in a detail brush, and using the very tip of the brush like we normally do, we're just going to slowly try to pick out the area that we want to be yellow. And we're going to try to be a little bit more careful with this. We don't want to get the yellow on all of the blue areas. The good side of it is, if you do make mistakes, it is quite easy to repair, you know, a little bit of water or something like that. Or if you need to, you can always just go back to that base blue and just build that blue back up across those sort of spiny bits just going down the back of the head. So once that's done, you should have something that looks a little bit like this. So this is the blue and yellow. We're picking these tones because they are quite opposite to each other on the color wheel, so these are really going to stand out and stick out against each other and really catch your eye on the board as well. So I'm going to use a black forest green from scale 75. This is a nice dark green colour. It's kind of like a dark angel green, so if you use like Citadel or anything like that, you can use sort of a dark angel kind of colour. And that's all I'm doing, is just base coating the eyes in this sort of bright sort of green colour, because we're going to kind of make a lizard kind of green eye effect on these later on. So we're just preparing the area by using this green to begin with. As you can see, I'm not being too precious or overly cautious just yet. I mean, it's always good to be as careful as possible. You don't want to get the green over all of that blue, but these are just base colours and base coats, so don't worry too much, because you'll have plenty of time to fix these and to get these looking exactly how you want them a little bit later. So there we go, as you can see, just being careful on the eyes. Once that's done, then we're going to use a military green from Vallejo. This is a really nice flat matte dark green colour. This is a great dark green to base your models when you're painting sort of greens, because this colour allows you to build up to other sort of lighter greens a little bit later on. So I tend to use this military green quite often for this sort of effect. And that's all we're going to do, is just paint all of their shorts. So as you can see, we've got all of these different shorts on the lizards. So just going to base this using this really nice dark military green. As you can see, I'm using the wet palette just to the side there, just so that I can judge and make sure that I get a nice little bit of water onto the paint, so that the paint moves and manipulates onto the miniature in a nice even fashion as well. And we're just going to cover all of the areas of the shorts. We're just going to cover all of the shorts just like so. And as you can see, I'm just showing you on multiple miniatures at the same time, doing a little bit of picture-in-picture for you, just so you can see that I'm covering the shorts and this sort of cloth area on all of the models in the same way. I tend to enjoy using earthy tones a lot, earth tones, greens, browns, things like that, the creams instead of whites. They tend to like sort of create a natural, really sort of even and nice looking effect on your models. Now from there, instead of using black, if you've watched the channel before, you'll know instead of using black, I'm using something called a tenebrous grey. This is from AK Interactive. It does very much the same thing as a black, so if you wanted to use black, you're more than welcome to use black instead. And pretty much that's all I'm doing is covering all of those sort of scales across the back area. And the reason why I'm painting these in a black colour is purely because later I'm going to use the colour shifting paints, and we're going to get this really cool looking sort of shifting blue tone effect out of the scales, and that way we're going to have this really cool blue skin color with shifting blue sort of scales on the models as well, and that's hopefully going to help us to make these models really catch the eye on the board. So when my friend is playing in his tournament, hopefully people will see his models, see his lizards, and think, wow, these look really different and really unique, and will give him a sort of a source of pride when he's playing with his game as well. So that should be pretty cool. So as you can see, just trying to be very careful and painting over all of those scales. On the bigger guys, they do have a few scales just down their legs as well, and there is scales across the tail. Even on the small guys, there's one or two small little scales, small little dots here and there just on the tail. So just painting all of those in this sort of dark grey or black colour, depending on which colour you prefer to use. And there you go, just again trying to be a little bit careful, but you don't have to be exact or precise or perfect with it, because these are all base colours, so they're easy to fix if you do make a mistake. That's the beauty of painting this way, is that it's nice and simple to fix if you do anything wrong. From there, we're going to use a skeleton bone from the army painter. This is a great base colour for anything sort of bone. So we're going to use this across the top part of the big guys, just across the skulls, but we're also going to use this across things like the teeth and across the claws, the nails. I've got one or two skulls on the bases, so I'm going to base them using this colour as well, and also a few things like the ropes and things like that are going just around parts of the model that are keeping sort of like the sort of medals and things in place. They've got kind of ropes going around their arms, their tails and things like that. So I'm just going to try to carefully place this cream just across all of those areas. Again, these are base coats, so I'm not being massively cautious or careful at the moment, because these are things that are easy to fix, and you could just go back and paint the blue a little bit closer if you get a little bit of the cream on the blue and things like that. So it's easy to fix, and again, that's the beauty with the wet palette, is the paint stays on your palette and it stays wet. So if you do make a mistake, you could just go straight back to the palette and pick the paints up and carry on nice and quickly, nice and smoothly, nice and easily. So as you can see, just trying to cover all of these areas and just being nice and quick just for the demonstration on camera, but of course they will be tidied up. From there then, I'm going to use a Citadel colour. So we go into a Retributor armour. Now this is again one of my favourite colours. This colour is a really good sort of gold tone. So this has a darker sort of gold colour. This isn't too bright, it's not too vibrant. It has a really good sort of mid-tone colour to the gold. It shines really well. The colour actually takes to the models fantastically well. It actually goes onto the models and sticks to the models in a really great way. So this creates a very good base tone, very good base colour that you can then build up from later should you want to. And that's all I'm going to do, is paint all of the metallic parts. So just paint in, when we drop one of our skinks, so just paint in all of those metal bits, all of those parts of the tail, the bits just hanging, so the dangling sort of jewels and gems and all these different things, and just paint in all of these golds so that we get this really nice metallic shiny sort of colour. Again, allowing the models to really stand out and really look glowing, shiny, bright and things like that. Just creating this really cool sort of Aztec kind of feel to it, and just getting these metals and metallics looking really bright and vibrant and shiny. I mean, you can opt to do a non-metallic metal if you like. Painting a full team of Blood Bowl may sort of be a little bit more difficult, may take a lot longer. So instead of doing any true metallic, any sort of non-metallic metal, sorry, I'm sticking with a true metallics. So after that is dry, we're then going to use a khaki colour. So I'm just going to use khaki from Vallejo. So you could use any kind of khaki colour for this. And that's all I'm going to use this for, is to just paint the gloves. Now, if you're not a fan of painting the sort of ropes and banding in the sort of cream colour, like matching the bones, you could use the sort of khaki colour instead, and that would turn it into a little bit more of an earthier colour, which would be really, really cool, and tie it all together. So I'm going to use a scale 75 red here, and literally that's all I'm going to do, is just paint a little bit of red on the tongues and inside the open mouths. It's completely up to you which red you would prefer to use. I mean, everyone's got their favourites. I'm just using the scale 75 red because I recently, for my birthday last year, purchased a red set of scale 75, so I wanted to try to test them out and see what they like, and sort of have a bit of fun using these new colours. So that's the reason why I'm using the reds. There's no other major reason. It's not because the colour is better than any other, or because the brand is better than any other. It's literally just because I have these colours, I enjoy using them, and I wanted to try them out and see how vibrant and how cool they look on these models. So I'm just painting the tongues and the inside of the mouths and things like that. Just nice and simple, nice and easy. Just like so. Again, you can see I'm making a lot of mistakes, but it doesn't matter because I'm going to sort of tidy it all up before I apply the wash to the models. So with part 2, we're just going to apply the wash to the models, and I'm going to use a Vallejo game wash. This is a dipping formula, so I'm using the sepia tone here. As you can see, this is a very messy sort of job, which is why my jar and my tub is very messy and full of sort of marks and things like that. And pretty much that's all I'm doing here, is just going to cover all of the models. I'm also covering my bases as well, so it ties everything together, and I'm just going to try to make sure that I cover every area of this model in this way. Now, you don't have to follow me in applying just a single wash, but again, because I'm painting so many models all at the same time, the idea and the plan was to try to just tie them all together nice and quickly, nice and easily. Sometimes when you're painting a full squad, it can be hard to sit down and really sort of work on each individual part, because it takes a lot of time, and sometimes you kind of want things to be painted and completed so that you can get them on the board and play. So I understand that, I get that, and this is why I wanted to show you sort of just an easy way of painting with just a single sort of wash, just covering the whole model. And again, using this sepia colour, we're using this sort of brown earthy kind of colour, this earthy tone for the wash as well. And as you can see, I'm literally just covering the whole model in this colour, because this one does dry down into a really cool sort of matte effect. So this is going to tie a lot of those colours together. It's going to do a lot of work for us on those ropes and on the banding, because this is going to sit in all of those recess points, in all of those details that shows that it's rope and they've got a lot of sort of creases and bits like that. This is going to sit in there and do all of that hard work for us, just around the ropes and around the gloves, as you can see, and things like that. And pretty much you can just be as careful as possible. You don't have to cover and have like sort of pools and things like that in certain areas. You can be very careful and avoid pooling too much in certain parts. But as you can see, like I said multiple times, I'm just going to cover the whole model just so that it ties all of those colours into one. Just like so. And you can see I've tied all of those colours together. So moving on to part 3, this is going to be a case of just rebuilding those skin tones. So we're going to build up the skin colour. So we're going to go back to the colour that we started with, this Vallejo medium blue. And with this colour we're going to start to build all of the vibrance back up. But like we normally do on this channel, if you see me painting before, we're going to paint this highlight colour, paint this colour back in, while we leave the wash sitting in a lot of those recess points. So the wash is going to sit in those areas, creating a darker effect, which is going to give us that contrast between the lighter areas to the darker areas. And as you can see, we're just going to slowly build this colour back up. And as we start to paint through the model and paint through the details and paint through all of those sort of raised areas, the muscle textures, while leaving the wash in those recess points, you'll really see the character and that depth start to show through. We're also going to paint all around the head in the same way. We're going to use the very tip of the brush, as you can see, and we're going to pick out the details, but we're going to leave that shade just sitting around the eyes, just sitting around his muzzle, just around the mouth area here. And as you can see, using the brush strokes there, we're starting to create an element, an illusion of texture and detail in the model. Just like so, we're starting to build that colour back. And those brush strokes now are really going to lend themselves to building the character and building the texture. You don't have to use just flat blends all the time. It's using the brush to your advantage. So we're going to use a scale 75 blue. This is a much lighter blue, but this is a thin color blue. So this is nice and thin, as you can see. It's almost like a glaze. And so I'm going to use this then to build the color up in the highlighted areas. So the areas that I want the blue to really stand out, again using the very tip of the brush, I'm going to slowly build this texture and build this highlight color. But what we're also going to do, we're going to use the brush to the best effect that we can. So as I said about using the brush to create these illusions of texture, as you can see, I'm just using the brush strokes, but again, the very tip of the brush, I'm also using a stippling effect. And stippling effect is pretty much, you just use the very, very edge, the very tip of the brush, and you just use dots and dabs, and you just dot in the brush just around the eyes, just like so. Look at this. And you can see now we're starting to get this texture, this illusion that there's scales all around the eyes, illusion of scales and things all around the face, all around the head. And this is going to give us this really cool, great looking texture and this great looking effect on the model. See, just there on the back, just using that stippling, that dabbing effect, and it's creating this great illusion that there are, like I say, scales, and the light is catching on the lizards in so many different areas, so the light is bouncing off certain parts. Look at that difference, just two different colors, and look at the difference in the highlights and the texture across the face. Such a simple technique to get these lizards to look really individual, really different, and really unique. It's very, very quick, very, very easy, but it looks like you've spent so long doing this, and it creates this really incredible illusion of time well spent, and a lot of detail and a lot of work rate has gone into it. So yeah, using that stippling effect, you can really see how this is bringing out a lot of character and bringing out the lizard to life. So just using the brush strokes across the muscle tone at the beginning, as you could see, and just highlighting with this nice light scale 75 paint, and then of course just using this stippling effect and this dabbing effect all around the face and things like that, all around the eyes especially, to create those scales and that illusion of scales, just like so. Look at this. And again, you don't have to be too precise, because nature isn't exact or precise. You kind of want things to look a little bit organic, so don't worry too much about the brush strokes and things like that, because that's going to add to the texture and the illusion anyway. So once all of that is dry, as you can see around the faces, it's nice and bright now, where I've gone through with multiple layers and just across the muscle tone and the texture across the legs and the arms. You can really see that light blue is really allowing the color to pop on the model. From there then we're going to move back to using the Avalon Sunset and using the very tip of the brush and a nice little bit of water. This watered down paint now we're going to paint more towards the middle of these areas around the sort of back of the head, these barbed sort of areas. Now if you do make a mistake like I have here, that's all you need to do is just run a small little bit of water across your brush, and there you go, you can fix these little mistakes and it's not the end of the world. There we go. And then we're going to boost a little bit more of the vibrancy on the yellow. So we're going to use a deep yellow from Vallejo. And this is just going to be a nice thin layer. So this is kind of like glazing. And what we're going to do is we're going to use this nice thin layer of yellow. So yellow is normally quite thin anyway, but once you add a little bit of water to it and thin this down, it becomes quite a thin sort of color, which allows you then to boost the vibrancy in multiple layers. So it's up to you sort of how many layers you'd like to use. And as you can see, it has an immediate effect by looking at it off the sort of when the paint is wet, but as it dries down, it actually dries down quite small, so it doesn't give you this huge impact right away. So giving it 2 or 3 layers will allow you to choose and pick where you want the vibrancy to be. So you can see how I'm picking the vibrancy to be more towards the middle of those spines. After all of that, we're going to move on to part 4. This is going to be painting all of those details and bringing all of those colours and details back to life. Now that we've done the skin and we've done our wash, we're now going to start to pick all of those colours back out. So we're going to start by using a nice dark blue, scale 75 blue. You can use any sort of dark blue that you like. You can see all of the different paints that I'm using as I paint along. And pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to use the very tip of the brush to create this really cool sort of stippled, dotted effect going through those spines. And this is going to give us this really amazing sort of lizard kind of, I don't know, sort of like natural cool sort of texture, or this really interesting looking part of the model. So this is really going to allow the models to stand out. That's the greatest and best thing with painting these Lizardmen, is it gives you the opportunity to paint loads of cool techniques that you wouldn't normally think you could, like stippling all of the paint around the faces to create the illusion of scales, and using the very small fine detail stippling like this across the spines to create these cool patterns and these cool looking bits of interesting sort of well, patterns and things as you like. As you can see, it is just a case of using the very, very, very edge of the brush, the very, very tip, and just using a very small amount of paint on the brush. You don't want to overload your brush at this stage, because if you overload your brush, you'll end up with really, really big dots. And the idea is you want these dots to be nice and small so that you can see them, you notice them, they stay there, but they're not too big over the top that it catches your eye too much. You can really see that yellow contrasting against the blue now, and really allowing those skinks to look absolutely fantastic. And once we've done that detail point, we're then going to go back to our retributor armor. So we're going to use this gold, and we're just going to rebuild a lot of the gold and just get all of the shininess back to some of the bits of the gold. So the wash has done loads of favors for us, and it's sat in all of those recess points and picked out all of the detail in the gold for us. But what we want to do now is just catch the very highlights, so the very tops of those parts of gold, just to kind of create this great sort of shiny area and bring back a lot of the shine and the glow from these true metallic metals. So yeah, hoping that this is going to create a shiny and glowing and bright and colourful sort of Blood Bowl team for my friend, and I'm hoping that the paint job is going to be sort of suitable for Nuffle as well, and I hope that the painting will allow my friend to have lots of good dice rolls. I hope that it doesn't bring him too many skulls, and I really hope that the painting will allow him to get a lot of good saving throws as well. So hopefully my painting will allow for a +1 to the armor rolls, you know, these sorts of things. So yeah, just picking out all of those details just across all of the gold. You can really see the gold starting to shine. You can see that sort of matte effect of the wash sitting in all those recess points have really created that depth and given us this really great sort of deep sort of combination between highlight and shadows all together in one nice easy way. Now you could push the metallics a little bit further if you wanted to. You could use sort of a polished gold from Vallejo, or if you like, I know some people like to dry brush or edge highlight a lot of gold with silver. Sounds a little counterproductive, but it actually does work. It looks pretty good, and it looks tidy. So you can do that if you want and make your gold look a little bit more worn, but that's completely up to you. I'm just keeping the things being nice and shiny and nice and gold. Once that's done, we're going to then make things nice and shiny again by using these really cool color shifter paints. So you could use like the chameleon paints from Green Stuff World, or these color shifters from Vallejo, and that's all we're going to do is paint this across the black. And this, as you can see, straight from the brush onto the model, you can already see those shiny metallic pigments in this paint that create this really cool, interesting sort of color shifting effect. And what this does is allows the colors to change slightly in different lights. So they have a shiny blue property, but they do also have this sort of purpley tone to them as well in this color. And hopefully, going along with the awesome looking bright gold colors, this will create a shiny and really amazing sort of effect that will stand out, especially on the board when my friend is playing. Hopefully people will notice and think, wow, I haven't seen sort of these chameleon effect colors or these color shifting colors in action before. They look really, really nice. So yeah, the idea is to make a really cool looking, shiny and interesting looking sort of set of models. So you can see that I'm just trying to paint this across all of those scaled areas and the scaly parts, just trying to make sure that I don't go too much into those recess points, into those really dark black areas. I mean, the cool thing with these is you can pretty much just put them on in one flat layer and they do most of the work for you. But I'm just being a little bit conscious that I'd like some areas to still have a little bit of depth, so I'm just not painting it in those recess points so that it creates that black sort of dark shadowing in the recessed areas, in those sort of deeper sort of shadowy areas, which is great. That's kind of what we're looking for. But as I say, you could, if you wanted to, you could just literally just cover the whole thing in that color. From there then, all of those bones, we're going to use bone white from Vallejo. So we used the skeleton bone as our base colour. Now bone white is going to be a nice bright light cream colour. This is going to really boost the vibrance on those bones. We've already got our base colour already on there. You can see that this sepia tone has created this sort of worn out sort of dirty looking bone, and by adding this nice vibrant light cream colour onto all of these nails, the bones, all of these different bits, you'll really see just how much these bones and these textures then again really stand out and create this vibrant colourful texture on the model as well. And it's going to create this really light sort of tone onto the model. And again, it's about breaking areas of the model up, so it gives you plenty to look at and plenty to see, but again sticking with a nice bright vibrant sort of colour. That's going to give us a lot to look at on the model. These models are going to be really light coloured, lots of blues, lots of yellows, really light creams, shiny golds, shiny reflective sort of blue tones. It's going to create a really interesting, really vibrant sort of team for him as well. And like I said, that's the cool thing about painting lizards, is there's so many sort of bright colours. They've got so many metallics on them. They wear so much jewellery and things like that. Really creates a vibrant, bright sort of texture of a really bright Blood Bowl team indeed. So you have to let me know in the comments below what you think of my colour choices for this. Do you like the colour shifters? Have you used them before? Would they be something that you would try out in future? And do you think that they are the type of thing that work better with sort of less, or would you rather use them as a paint that you cover on a lot of different things? Also, do you really like, what would you say is probably the best bit of this team? What would you say is the colours that complement each other the best, or which colour do you think is the nicest looking for the lizards? Do you like the way that the yellow and blue combine together and things like that? So yeah, like I say, let me know in the comments below. I always love reading your comments. I have a real good time going through and reading and commenting back. You know, I try to be as active in the community with you guys as I possibly can. So we're going to use some of the scale 75 greens now. We're going to use a nice military sort of green colour. This colour is it has a sort of olive green sort of property to it. So this is going to be kind of like an olivey green colour. And again, using nice thin layers, which is going to build this up. As you can see, I'm painting this across all of those folds, so that this allows the highlight to catch on those folded areas, while we leave that earthy tone wash, that earthy tone shade just sitting in those recesses. And that's really doing a lot of work for us. Again, you can really see that this building that contrast and that colour difference between those earthy sort of brown wash shades and then this light green, or the green colour then starting to pop and build off the highlights. So just using the tip of the brush, just picking out all of those folds, as you can see, just across the front part. I mean, you can paint these different colours. I know people paint them sort of whites and things like that, as in like towels for the American football side of the Blood Bowl, but that's completely up to you. They're your models, as I say. You can paint them however you like, and I'm just giving you sort of an idea as to what colours to use and what kind of paints I use and things like that. So yeah, just trying to pick out all of those details, all of those folds, all of those creases, and using the brush strokes again to give us the textures and things like that. Once that one is done, we're going to use a field grey. This is a much lighter grey. Again, this has a sort of a greeny grey kind of property, but this is going to give us a nice highlight. So what we're doing is adding a nice little bit of water to this, so that it allows the paint to be really nice and thin, because we don't want the paint to be too thick. The highlight colour is a little bit too much to be a thick paint, so we're just going to use a nice thin paint, because this, as it dries, then is going to create a more subtle sort of blend onto the model. So you're not going to have this really bright, vibrant sort of over the top highlight. This is just going to give you a nice controlled level of highlight and things like that. Again, you can see I'm using the very edge of the brush, the very tip, just to pick out those details, just to pick out those areas where the folds are and the creases are and things like that, just like so. Just building these points up, building all of these areas, just like so. And again, you can see how watered down the paint is, you can see how thin the paint is, so this isn't going to overdo or create these big blobs of highlights. Instead, this is just going to create a nice smooth highlight transition for us, which is just going to do a lot of work for us, just like so. And again, picking out all of those folds, all of those creases. There you go. And using the brush and the brush strokes just to build that texture and that illusion of folds and creases. There you go. You can already see how much of an effect that's having on the green. Blurring and blending these colours together with nice sort of thin down paints like this will allow the paints and the highlights especially to look a lot more natural and to become a little bit more normal looking and a little bit more pleasing to the eye as well. There we go. And again, if you wanted to, because you're using thin down paints, you can use multiple layers to create the highlights and the patterns and things like that. That's completely up to you. So I'm then going to move on to using a Bal Crimson. So as I said earlier, I have a cool set of Scale 75 reds, which I don't get the opportunity to use very often. So I'm just going to start to use some of these and implement these into some of my painting and into some of the videos, just to kind of give myself a little bit of fun and try in different paints and things like that. But you can use any kind of red colour that you like. I'm using a Crimson, which is a nice light sort of pinky kind of red in this particular one. So this creates a really cool kind of pinky kind of colour to his tongue. As you can see, the nice thin paint again is going to allow for some of that colour underneath to show through and create that sort of contrast between the lighter areas, the darker areas. And again, it's all about putting as many sort of layers on as you would like to get things kind of as vibrant or as sort of smooth a transition as you prefer. Everyone paints in completely different ways, so it's up to you how you would prefer to paint all of your different things. I just give you a few different paint options and ideas and let you guys go wild with it. So I'm going to use a boreal green. So as I said earlier, I was going to use some different greens to create a cool looking effect on the eyes. This is quite a shiny light sort of green, and as you can see, this has a kind of toxic kind of green colour. And that's what I'm going to do, is just place this sort of towards the middle of the eye, just like so. And I'm going to put that on all of the eyes first, and we're just going to place this kind of dot, this blob of shiny sort of green in the middle. And this has this really sort of shiny effect onto the model, just like so. And once that's done, we're going to use an Arati green, which is a really, really, really bright, vibrant green. This is very similar to something like a moot green from Citadel or a scorpion green from Vallejo. And that's all I'm doing. It's the same thing as we did with the back of the spines on his head. We're just going to use the very edge of the brush and using a few dots. We're going to paint some of the dots around the eye while we leave a darker area in the center. And this is going to create this really cool illusion of having lizard sort of eyes or sort of amphibious eyes. This really cool kind of idea that there's eyes or sort of otherworldly eyes, you know, this sort of different kind of effect. Now if you wanted to, you can also just get black and paint a simple stripe, just a simple line down the center as well, and that will add to these like snake-like, lizard-like eyes, which would really create a cool looking effect. As you can see, I'm just kind of dabbing these and creating this really interesting, really simple sort of technique to give you such cool looking characters. And there we go. So all in all, that is everything all done. If you wanted to, you can go back and build up some of the gloves. I didn't, because the gloves are such a small part of the model. There's no real massive need to do so. And the same thing with all of the ropes and all of those little bits that I was talking about earlier. You could paint those back up in the cream colors if you wanted to, maybe do a very small bit of dry brushing just across the edges to boost the colors, but that is completely up to you. It is however you want to paint. Like I say, they're your models, paint them however you like. But all in all, that's how your or my Lizardman team looks. I hope my friend is going to enjoy these, and I hope it's going to bring him much, much, much success on the table. Again, as I said, you have to let me know in the comment section what you think of the paint jobs, of the paint schemes, the color choices, and things like that. As always, my friends, I thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Thank you so much for being patient with me around the holidays while I took a small break, and it's really good to be back. I'm really looking forward to hearing from you all, so please take care of yourselves, and I will see you all on the next one. See you!